seconds, so it's fine. Well, I've got a strange noise. I'm hoping that that's not too strange for you there, Bob. But good afternoon. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon, you, Bob. It is First Friday Live again, and we have the most incredible, amazing guest. I'm so lucky to spend, well, every Friday morning with this amazing gentleman, because we just get together at 7 a.m., don't we, Bob? Just for everybody in the whole world, we get together every Friday morning at 7 a.m. like weirdos in our own elite group. Well, it's the A team with Pete Cohen, and that's how we met, didn't we? Did we meet on Clubhouse first?
We met on Clubhouse all those years ago, yeah.
Everybody should remember the legacy of Clubhouse. But yeah, so we met there. Now we're in a coaching group, and I haven't brought you on to First Friday Live, and actually you're probably going to be the most phenomenal guest we've ever had. So please, you introduce yourself. I could do it, but I would just wax lyrical and for about 20 minutes, and then we'd run out of time. So tell me about you. Who is Bob Allen?
Okay, thank you for that great introduction, MJ. And yes, we do meet every Friday at 7 o'clock. And yeah, it's always a good one. Who am I? How long have I got? Because how far back do you want me to go?
Yeah, well, we've got an hour together at least. We can be here for as long as we want, really. Nobody can tell us what to do. I think when me and Pete Cohen were on, it might have been about an hour and 40 minutes, but we'll try and keep it shorter, because I think you're going out to see your dad, aren't you, after?
I am.
Good,
Yes.
good,
So,
good.
right, okay, so who am I? Well, my name is Bob Allen, as MJ eloquently put it. I am an osteopath. I have been an osteopath for 14 years this year. Prior to that, I got my level for sports and medial massage therapy. But if we go right the way back to how I became an osteopath, or more likely why I became an osteopath, because a few people have asked me this question, and I've always said, well, yeah, it was a change of career from IT. But actually, looking back beyond that, when I was a young'un, parents used to buy me mechanical stuff like train sets and cranes and all those sorts of things, the electrical things. And I always took them apart because I always wanted to know how they worked. So I lots of toys, took them apart, put them back together. Most of the time they worked, sometimes they didn't, which upset my parents a little bit, but you know, inquiring mind of a youngster. So yeah, that was just kind of one of the things that I did. Always had my head in books. When the first kind of computers came out, I would spend hours typing out all the code from the magazines and all of that sort of stuff. So I've always had that kind of an inquiring mind of how do these things work? So fast forward to my kind of O and A level things, and I decided I wanted to be a mechanic. But my mum particularly had a word and said, no, actually, I think you should get a degree first and then decide what you want to do, because mechanic, it's a good job, but I think you can do more than that. So, yeah, so I went to university, did a degree in applied biology, and then spent a year or two trying to work out what do I actually want to do, because, you know, when you leave uni, a lot of people don't really know what they want to do next.
No.
And I was one of those people. So I thought I can either go for a career in research, which didn't really appeal, or I can retrain in IT. So I retrained in IT, and that's what I did. So I became an analyst programmer at a leading credit card company, and then kind of worked my way up through the ranks to become a project manager. So, you know, decent sized implementations of various credit card products, that sort of thing. And then after 15 years of that, I know I don't look that old, but I am really old. I'm 56 in 2 weeks. So worked my way through that. And then after 15 years, it was back in the days when companies were outsourcing their IT departments. So we got outsourced, and I went from being a project manager, pulling a team together, implementing decent sized projects. I went from that to being an accounts manager. So it was more looking at the numbers and not really what I wanted to do. So I did that for a few years and just got more and more, yeah, this is really not what I want to do with my life. And then the universe decided that one of my family members needed to go to, they had a few problems, and I ended up taking to an osteopath. I didn't know anything about osteopathy. A friend of the family said, "Yeah, take him to an osteopath. I can recommend you." So I did, and it kind of went from there. So I went to see. So while I was there, I was asking the osteopath lots of questions about, well, why are you doing that then? Why is your hand going there? What does that do? How does that work? Instead of getting really hacked off with me, he said, "Look, why don't you come back and on your own, and we'll talk to my patients, and as long as they're happy for you to be here, I will show you how it works, what I do, and I'll explain it all to you, and you can ask me questions." And so I did, and I did that a few times. Then had a bit of an epiphany. I decided, well, actually, what I'm doing at the moment, I really do not like the job that I've got, so I want to be an osteopath. It was one of those kind of things. And so I sat down with family, because I had a young family at the time. So I sat down with them and said, look, I don't like my job. I really don't like my job. This osteopathy thing, I think I could do this. And I said, we sat down and I said, yeah, it was a part-time course. So it was 5 years part-time, weekends, and a couple of residentials, and then some clinic days. And that just, yeah. Yeah, I saw that sharp intake of breath. Yeah, it was as hard as it sounds. It was. So we agreed that I would do that. It would mean missing the occasional family event and stuff, but further down the line, we could make up for those times that I've missed. So yeah, and as luck would have it, again, the universe was saying, yeah, Bob, I think you should do this. I hadn't told many people where I was working that I was going to be leaving in a couple of years, because osteopathy, you can do part-time, you can get away with it with like annual leave and stuff initially, but then you have to start doing clinic days, and that would end up being another 2 days a week, so I couldn't do that. So as luck would have it, I was 1 year into the course, and then the company I was working for decided they wanted voluntary redundancies. So I said, me. And they said, all right then. And I've been there for 20 years by that time. So it was in the days when redundancy was quite generous. So I was getting a month's salary for every year that I'd been there. So I walked out with nearly 2 years' salary, which paid for most of the course. And so I did the course, hardest thing I've ever done, and graduated in 2011. While I was doing the course, I got a level 4 in sports and remedial massage therapy, and I also started working as a dyslexia support tutor, and that was really interesting, because I know we could talk about neurodivergence and all that. This is back in 2010, 2011. So that was a really good grounding in working with adults with dyslexia, with dyscalculia, and all those other related issues. So I graduated in 2011, and I've been an osteopath ever since.
That's a fantastic summary, and what I really love is the fact that you did it part-time over 5 years with clinic work, and it worked the first 2, because I have the feeling that practitioners who go that route, I feel, first of all, university's wasted on young people. That's the first thing. And I think that older people commit so much more readily, because you're spending your own coin. You know that money that you just got for your redundancy is going into this course. So what do? You either commit to it, or basically you might be wasting the family's money. And I think that's really a powerful committer. Like, it makes me so accountable for everything I do. And that I'm still currently training. I'm still at university, because I don't want to give away the student discount, and I'm not paying my council tax. So I would say go back to university, although I know it was 5 years. I think, but between now, say we're 60 and 82, my oldest client is. Well, look how many degrees you could fit in 22 years.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's one of those. It was quite intense. So at the end of it, I thought, I don't want to learn anything else now. I'm
no,
done.
ever.
But
Yeah.
actually, that's all I've been doing. Is there's always something more to learn, and it's one of the joys of the human body. We think we know what's going on, and then something will come up, and they'll go, actually, yeah, you know how you think this is how it works. Well, actually, no, this is, and I know that it's just going to keep going, and it's just going to keep growing, and we're going to learn more and more and more. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's never, every day's a school day, as my mum used to say, and now my brother says most days. So it brings me on really to question two, and this one really resonates with me. It's close to my heart. On your website, and I know that my team have done a bit of a deep dive on you.
Uh-huh.
You have a quote on your website, and I'll say it, and then you don't have to remember it. And it was from Bishop Desmond Tutu, of course, but I'm going to read it because I can't remember it. He says, or he said, there comes a point when we just need, or actually, when we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. I mean, when I read that, I literally went, well, now I know why me and Bob get on. Because it isn't just about finding a solution to the current challenge, but about actually finding out what's going on to create that challenge, right? Tell me about that quote.
Yeah, it's one of those quotes that I came across when I was getting my website redone, and I just thought, actually, I need to put that on there because it sums up exactly who I am and what I do, and it is for that reason. It's I could shoot off at a tangent. No, I think I will shoot off at a tangent. It's one of those things about Western medicine is that it's very reductionist, and it's all about, we have 12 systems, muscles, blood vessels, nervous system, bone, etc., and we try and address them one at a time. So if somebody has, I don't know, a sprained ankle, we'll look at the ankle, but we'll forget everything above that, and then but we're very reductionist in how it works. And medication is the same thing. If somebody has high blood pressure, give them medication for it. Well, actually, why not look at why that person has high blood pressure? Why not look at why did that person sprain their ankle? Why do they have high cholesterol? We've got loads of medication to bring that cholesterol down. We've got loads of medication to control heart rate. So yeah, that's great. We can manage that. But why is it happening? Sort out the why it's happening, and then you can potentially stop it.
Well, I mean, don't talk to me about pharmaceuticals because I'm afraid me and the big pharma, we're not friends. I'm afraid that every piece of medication I've ever been given has produced symptoms and side effects that have produced the need for another piece of medication.
Yeah.
One laid upon the other, I ended up on 26 different types of medication. And basically, I was just a chemistry, crisis happening. So, is pain-free living really possible? I'm known for saying you're either disabled, temporarily disabled,
Yeah.
or yet to be disabled. And I think that your work's all about making sure that doesn't happen, even though, like I say, 87% of disabilities are acquired during life. So that for those that don't think that they need to come and see you, I guess it's they don't need to come and see you yet. A bit like they don't need to come and see me yet, but it won't be long before they are on that train, I'm afraid. Do you think, even if you are trying to ensure that that doesn't happen, do you think that pain-free living is really possible?
Well, that's an interesting question. Now, pain-free living is actually possible, but it's not a good thing because there's a condition called congenital analgesia, and it's a genetic problem, and it's where children are born without the ability to feel pain.
Mm.
I can't remember the exact mechanics and which genes are switched on and off and that sort of thing, but they are born with the total inability to feel pain. And there's not many of them because they don't survive for very long because they can break a limb, they stick their hand in boiling water, all those things that kids do. except that this group doesn't actually feel anything, don't feel pain. So yeah, their life expectancy is very short. So pain-free living is not a good thing.
No, I mean, pain informs, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pain
Yeah.
informed. If you can't feel pain, then how do you know that you've just injured yourself or done something that you shouldn't have done? So no,
So,
it's not. Sorry, it is possible, but it's not recommended.
but when people do have pain, they come to you, you're looking for the origin story as opposed to the symptom. And then
Exactly.
you can see where it comes from. I guess, when I think about ankles, which you've talked to, and of course I've listened to your podcast, and you are talking about pain at the moment in exercise. And there are many people that I work with who don't want to move because it hurts. And yet
Yeah,
I've never gone to the gym where it hasn't caused me discomfort in order that I can build muscle. That's
yeah,
the reality. So I think that, yeah, pain informs, and your job really is to work out why the pain is there and if there's something underlying and maybe in a different part of that system that needs attending to, right?
yeah. Exactly that. Because there's the issue. If you go and see someone and they work specifically on that pain, and a good example of this is knee pain, for example. If you've never had a trip or a fall, then knee pain, then the knee is a hinge joint. It bends and straightens, and that's pretty much it. So if you've never had a trip or a fall, then and injured the knee, then in 80% of the cases that I see, the knee is not the problem. A lot of the time, it's feet and ankles.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've had a severe ankle sprain, and a lot of the people I see with knee problems do, or they're runners, and their balance isn't great, then yeah, exactly, the knee's that joint between the two longest bones in the body. So that's where people will feel the pain, but it's not because there's an issue with the knee. It's because, like I said, a lot of the time it's an issue with an ankle, and you work all the way up. So a lot of it's balance issues. So we sort out the balance problems, and 9 times out of 10 that sorts out the knee problem. I had a guy who saw recently. He torn an ACL ligament in his knee 20 years ago. Had the ligament replaced. He'd had loads of different treatments over the following 4 or 5 years because he was still getting knee pain, and then he just gave up. He just gave up going to see anyone because they weren't resolving the problem. 15 years later, no, 20 years later, he came to see me because mutual friend said, "Yeah, go and see Bob because he's all right at that sort of thing." And 2 treatments, and it was sorted. They're not all that easy, and the thing is, it wasn't actually his knee that was the problem. It was the opposite hip.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, because I guess it's about weight bearing and whether we're balancing in that weight bearing. For a
Exactly.
long time, I could only use, my hip through itself, and I only could walk at one side basically. I used my crutches and I walked at one side, but the other side I had to throw forward, and that had its
Yeah.
own impact on my system. So I work with, as you can see, I work with accessibility partners, and generally through one or more systems, but predominantly the Access to Work system. Now, many of those people that come to me are in pain. They are.
Yeah.
They're in pain, and they don't really understand where their chronic pain is coming from. Do you think that osteopathy can help those individuals?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's because kind of we were talking pre the program about the difference between osteopathy, physiotherapy, and chiropractic, and the reality is there's not a massive amount in terms of the techniques we use. I think I'd say that osteopathy's got a slightly bigger toolbox than the others, but there's not a massive difference in the techniques and things that we would do. The big difference is that osteopathy is holistic from day one. We are taught to look at and consider every system in the body because it can all contribute to the problem. And I think that's fairly unique to osteopathy in my experience. There may be other things out there that do the same, but we are recognised and so registered as osteopaths. So the thing is, if we do come across a person who has pain that we cannot help with, then we know enough to be able to refer them to somebody who may be able to. And I do. I have.
Oh, I've just lost your sound. I think you're frozen. I wonder where you are. You've just frozen on my screen there, Bob. We appear to have some internet gremlins bobbing in. I'm sure you'll come back. Let's have a look. I wonder if I can... Oh, you've gone. Let's have a look. No, you're still frozen. Well, guys, I'm sure that Bob's going to sort out his internet. Look, I'm a whole systems practitioner. I work with people, the individuals that we support have chronic and enduring conditions, and I think that osteopathy and perhaps an integrative approach is definitely what's going on. Yeah, we've lost Bob. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment. But isn't it fascinating? I'm going to be talking to Bob in a moment when he comes back about Otago, which is he's an Otago program leader, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. But I do believe it's about older adults, and now I'm part of the British Association of Social Workers special interest group with older adults, and that group has just developed the International Federation of Social Workers definition of what older people want in a social worker. And I'm a trainee social worker in Wales, just coming to the latter stages of my training. And older people, we have so many more older people than ever before. We've got more octogenarians than ever before, and people are living longer. When they live longer, it's okay living all the years, but I wonder whether living all the years is living all of the benefit of those years. So I want to live well into my 80s, but if I'm not going to be living well, it might be difficult for me to enjoy that time living longer. So I don't think it's about us living longer, but actually about us living well in that agedness. So I'm looking forward to when Bob comes back, and we can talk about the Otago, but it gives us a chance just to talk about him without him. And of course, disabled people never want that. We want to be talked with and for us. But very often practitioners of that medical model, and Bob's obviously not one of those, he's a person-centred, outcomes-driven, task-oriented practitioner. And he really works in an integrative way like myself. So I'm looking forward to hearing about the Otago, and a little bit of an ahead. I'm going to be asking Bob a question at the end, but we can sneakily not tell him yet. I'm going to be waving my magic wand and asking Bob what he might do with 5 minutes. And of course, First Friday Live is with you to bring you some value. We hope that the people alongside us really do bring that value to the table. I know that we've lost him just now, the joys of modern technology, unfortunately, but I'm quite sure that he's going to be able to return and pop back in when he can. We're also going to ask him about what a typical day is in his life. Look at me with a little bit of hair sticking up there. What a typical day is in Bob's life. I can't work out which side of my hair. I'm just going to have to live with a little bit of hair sticking up, I think. Yep, there we are. Oh, hey up, there you are. The man himself has joined us. I'm grateful for you, Bob. We've been talking about you without you, which I think is fantastic. Because I've been able to talk. Yeah, well,
sorry.
it's great. No, it's fine.
Sorry,
I enjoyed it. I thought it was
on me, but
good you bobbed off. Bobbed off, did you like that? Did that come out? That was a little bit of a pun, wasn't it there? An accidental pun.
bit,
Yeah, I've been talking about the fact that I'm a member of the British Association of Social Workers, older persons group, which has just redefined what older people's social work should be. And in fact, what we found from older people is that they just want to know the name of their social worker at those very important times. Not rocket science, but I was also saying that we're living longer and we have octogenarians more than we've ever created before. But I also think that I want to live well into my octogenarian years, not just live. So tell us, because I did mention that you're an Otago. That's what it says here, an Otago program leader, and the only thing I know is that it's to do with older people. Is that right?
That is exactly what Otago is. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us
So
about it.
Otago, yeah, absolutely. So Otago is a place in New Zealand. So anybody that goes and Googles Otago, that's what's going to come up first.
New
But
holiday.
it's also one of the things about living in the southern hemisphere is that they're really really good at if you're looking at leading in physiotherapy, that's where the leading voices are. They've always been way ahead of their time. So having noticed that people that are older tend to have a tendency to fall over, and
Lots of
a
falls.
fall as you get older can be quite well, can be very serious, particularly fractured hips, because fractured hips recovery from those takes a while and is, it's quite debilitating.
Hmm.
So they realise that if they get people to exercise, because the thing is, balance is like it's like a muscle. Use it or lose it. And as we get older, we tend not to put ourselves in situations where we test and develop our balance. We tend to, as we get older, people tended to sit more.
Hmm.
Muscles get weaker, but also balance gets worse. So that's partly related to muscle weakness, but also because, like I said, balance is like a muscle, and the more you practice it, the better it'll get. But if you stop, it'll get worse. So Otago is basically a group of exercises targeted at older adults, and it improves their strength, muscle strength, and it improves their balance. And you do those two things, and everything else becomes much easier. It's like you said, we as a society we have this. The view has always been portrayed that as you get older, you can do less, and you do less, and you do less, and by the end of it, you're sitting like a vegetable in a corner, being spoon-fed soup by your carer, and that's setting that expectation. But I ran Otago exercise classes with older adults who had never exercised before in their entire lives, and the transformation from where they started in terms of confidence, in terms of socialization, in terms of strength, all of that, off the chart. The oldest person I had in one of my exercise classes was 99.
Wow.
And she was up on her feet and she was doing all the exercises that we did. And
Hmm.
yeah, it really makes, I cannot overestimate how much of a difference it can make.
I met a 95-year-old the other day, and she was with a group of beautiful ladies, but it was near Halloween. And I said, "Oh, is this a meeting of the coven?" Only because it was near Halloween. And they said, "Well, it could be, because actually we all get together twice a week to do seated Tai Chi." And
Yeah.
this lady jumped up and came over and she said, "Do you know how old I am?" And I said, "No." And she asked when she told me she was 95. I thought she was more like 65.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like you. You look far more youthful than your years would tell us. And do you think that's about moving?
A lot of it's to do with mindset, because when you talk about blue zones where people tend to live longer, particularly in Japan, and ikigai,
Mm, having your
living
purpose.
with purpose.
Absolutely.
Once you've got, and this, I think this is one of the things that drives me as well, is that I know what I want to do, and I have to live to a ripe old age to be able to do that, and I can't see anything that's going to stop me.
Absolutely, mindset, and I call it heart shift, because it's
Yeah,
okay having the mind to do something, but our gut, our gut, our heart, and our brain are three systems, three sentient systems that work
yeah,
in synchronicity. So I like to think that if my mind's right, if my heart's shifted to the way my mind is, and then my hands act in line with those, and in social work we call it, and they call it the head, heart, and the hands of social work, but I personally think it should be the heart, the head, and the hands, because what my heart knows, my mind will follow, and then what I do with those two pieces of information really changes how I act. And of course, you're intentionally going to remain here to fulfill your purpose, and that's our ikigai. I love the way that you put that. So there's going to be people listening now and later, and hello everybody. It's great that you've joined us. Thank you to those people in the chat. There's going to be people listening that do want to be more pain free, and I'll say more pain free because I listen to you, that pain informs. What are your top tips for improving or reducing the pain that we don't need?
okay. And I will say something that you will totally resonate with, because this is what we talk about with Pete all the time, is the Magnificent Seven. That would be the top of my list. If you do all those things, then that will that will help. So that will help tremendously. That will
We
give
should
you
tell
a lot
people.
of focus.
We should tell
Oh,
people who don't know.
I
Eat
knew you were
right,
going to say that.
move right, sleep right, drink right, talk right, think right, and poop right. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly that. There you go. Spot,
or
spot
or
on.
eliminate right. Well,
Eliminate.
it's not
Yeah.
just about pooping, guys. It's about
No.
eliminating the negativity or the difficulty or those things that aren't really helping you forward. So I love quoting the Magnificent Seven, or the Daily Seven. Actually, we
Yeah.
should be looking at those daily, shouldn't we? It sounds a bit grandiose, the Magnificent Seven, but getting enough rest. Imperative. It's how we recover, and all the rest, right? All the
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah.
I'm there with the puns again.
Yeah. But it's exactly that. It is. So, and again, society has convinced us that we are almost helpless and that we are dependent on the NHS. The NHS is absolutely brilliant for emergency issues, situations. Absolutely brilliant for that. But it's the more chronic problems, and in the work that I do, it's the stuff like, if you have a disability, if you have chronic pain, if you are an older adult and you have pain, those are the things it's not so good at.
Not at all.
They invented the term polypharmacy, which alludes to what you were talking about earlier on, where you were on 20 odd drugs.
6.
Yeah. My dad's 95. He's on about 10. I think I managed to get him off a couple. But one of the things that I always do when people come see me, we go through the case history, current problem, medical history, and what medication they're on. And there have been occasions where I've sent people back to the GP to ask the question, why is this medication on the list? Because it was something they would give. So an example was a PPI, like omeprazole. If you take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory like naproxen or one of those, it can also affect the gut lining. So what they do is they give you medication to protect the gut. Now, short term, it's okay. Longer term, it can seriously start to affect how the gut functions, because it affects acid secretion, which is what's used to sterilize and help break down and digest food. If you give somebody medication that affects that, then short term, it's fine. Longer term, it can have all kinds of different health implications. And they've been on this medication, and I've seen people that have been on it for years. And the problem is that the medication doesn't get reviewed. It goes, right, okay, we'll give you this. That'll cause a side effect, and we'll give you this to counter the side effect. And then that combination can cause other problems, and we'll give you medication to. And instead of going back and going, right, okay, you need this, you don't need that, you don't need that, you don't need that, they just compound it. Hence, you end up on so many different drugs.
Crazy thing is that actually I've had both of those drugs long term, and now I ended up with my stomach lining being eaten away by the amount of challenge that it gave it. And actually, the thing that stopped me having to do that was when I changed my diet, and I had a test, an allergy test,
Yeah.
the York test, 100 different products, things that you imbibe. And once that came back and I followed what my body had reacted to, no more indigestion. No
Yeah.
more. No more omeprazole, no more lanzaparole, no more, impact on my gut. Literally no more. Healing your gut, I really believe the gut biome is an incredibly, like I said, the head, the heart, the hands, but the stomach does the talking, because our
Yeah.
gut biome actually tells us what to eat and what we want to do. And so absolutely, I think that again, the polypharmacy thing is very important. But we are not running out of time. There isn't a run out of time. I don't believe in time, as you know, but we are definitely motoring on. And I'm sure that for those listening live, they might have to go back to work, or they might have something to do. And I know your dad is waiting for his amazing son to come and give him some joy in his life. But I do want to know. I know I know you work hard. I know you do the work that you do. I know you serve people. But just tell me, what's a typical day like for Bob Allen? This is about Bob.
Well, interesting. There is so I'm in clinic 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days a week I'm doing stuff like this, one-to-ones, catching up with people, catching up with new tech, and all those sorts of things. I typically see 7 or 8 people in a day,
Mm,
and that's more than enough
mm,
because it's hard work,
I can
you know.
imagine.
But yeah, so typical day, people come in, and one of the things I like about the job is you never know who's going to walk through the door, and you never know what problems they're going to have. And my inquiring mind, and this is going back when I was young,
Mechanics.
and yeah, I just see it. Okay, so let's work through all of these different things, and let's see if we can find out exactly what's going on.
You're a
So
detective.
yeah, well,
You're
yeah,
a
no,
detective.
exactly that. And over time, I kind of get the more complicated ones.
Mm.
You know, the ones like I said, the guy with the knee problem for 20 years. Word kind of gets out, and I had another guy who's had a shoulder problem for 10 years.
They call it intractable, don't they, in the NHS? An intractable condition.
Yeah,
Well, I just don't believe in that. I believe there's always something that we can do, look at, consider, and
yeah,
reevaluate. And I do think you're right that the NHS, they just don't have the resources. They are
no,
incredible, as you say. I wouldn't be here without them. Many of us wouldn't be, especially in those emergency situations. But I think when you are labelled intractable, at that point, people have kind of given up because they look at the record and go, well, nobody else managed it, so how would I? Whereas your curiosity and your puzzle solving. I said whilst you weren't here, like I say, I talked about you without you, just to kick against the disability narrative of never doing that about people. But I just wanted to give people a little insight into what we were going to talk about, and I think I said. I think I've forgotten what I said now, but I'll come back to it. But I did
okay,
talk about you without you, which is good. Now we've got 2 more questions, and they're not that scary. I don't think any of the questions have been scary,
I
and I want to
don't
say
think so.
thank you before we finish, just for taking your time out to share with people what potential they have and how they can act in their own best interests and reach out to somebody like you, or indeed, if you are a disabled person and either want to work, are working, and don't have those reasonable adjustments at work, then again, the website is there for us, our access to work service with accessibility partners. So we are both reachable, outable too. But I want to ask you, before you tell us all about how people can reach Bob Allen, because everybody needs to reach Bob Allen, having looked at your website and know who you are and spend every Friday morning with you for an hour, I know they all need to be alongside you, but I've got a magic question, and it's for a magic person. And I actually am a magic lady, so that's useful. If I was to give you, and I know you have one of these, aha, you see, I knew you were magic, alongside me. If you had 5 minutes with one of these,
Yes.
what would you do with it?
Well, you see, it's one of those questions. So I would like to do things like world peace, and I would like to do things like get rid of all nuclear weapons, and everybody has enough money, and all of those things. But I think probably the most important thing to do would be to give everyone a social conscience, so that the Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all the billionaires and millionaires and government officials from the lowest to the highest give them a social conscience, because if you have a social conscience, there are so many things that you just wouldn't do.
Well, you know, we're both magic, right? And I'm telling you now, we just need to meld our minds and ask for the universe to provide for those people more of a social conscience. I'm not sure they can all beat it yet, but excuse me. I think having more of a social conscience is possible. So I'm going to be meditating over that, and I think it's a fantastic question to answer to a very difficult question. I think.
And I will join you in that meditation, and
Yeah, there we are. I
yes,
think
we
we
can do
could.
it.
Absolutely. Well, together we can, right? Because together we're just better.
We
And
are.
and I did say, what would you do with it? But I said, what would you do first? And I like that first one. I definitely want the second one as well, and the third one. So you've got some work to do in your meditation.
But
And
I like a challenge.
absolutely, I could hear that on account of the fact that I think you are going to be creating world peace, probably in the UN at some point. That's my imagination, anyway. So you can do it alongside some friends of mine who are already cracking on, really. So yeah, we are nearly at the end, which is a shame because I could spend all day with you, let alone just Friday mornings. This is the
Yeah, well, I'll pop over
second
the
time
car.
today. Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
pop
yeah.
over to Cardiff sometime, and we'll have a chat and have a beer. And yeah,
Oh, it'd be amazing to spend the day together. If you get you over here, you'll be staying all day, and we maybe go out for a boogie. But people who want to get to know Bob Allen and get to meet you, and I heard. I heard from you earlier. I'm going to tell everybody just so that they all ring you. Is that if they come over to your website, they can even put a little summary of what's going on for them, and or something, and you can tell me about it in a minute. But they can jump on a call actually with Bob Allen, can't they?
they can. They can. Yes, I am
I
a
mean,
solo
what an offer!
community. So yeah, so what I do is I do a free 15-minute assessment, which I think is quite important because it just gives people a better idea of why they're in pain. And a lot of the time I can, in 15 minutes is enough time to go, well, okay, this is what's going on and this is what you can do.
I love that.
So I've been doing this for 14 years now, so yeah, you kind of get the hang of it.
Yeah. When you see thousands and thousands, usually there's a solution focus comes to mind. I think sometimes even before you get the evidence for it, because you just become intuitive, because you're so curious, and because, like you said, as a mechanic, you've used mechanical engineering on human bodies for 15 years. You learn some stuff, right, about repetitive things that happen on. Yeah, absolutely. So where do they come? You've not told anybody. We'll stick it in the bottom when it's out later, but of course we're live at the moment, chaps. But if you want to listen later, we're gonna reissue First Friday Live. I want to say thank you for coming early as well, Bob, because I know it worked out good for you, but I really need to do something later, so I'm grateful. We're here at lunchtime, but I think there'll be people that want to watch lunch and people that want to watch dinner, and we can actually see what our engagement stats are like at both times. I love the fact we're on LinkedIn, by the way, and Facebook, and on YouTube. So you're going to be on our YouTube channel now. So how do they get in touch with the Bob Allen?
Right, they get in touch with the Bob Allen. You can either go all the usual socials. You can go on Facebook. You can go on Instagram. You can go to the website. I also have a podcast.
Yay!
And I also have a monthly newsletter where I cover interesting topics like fibromyalgia and muscle cramps and what else were they? Oh yeah, restless legs and all kinds of obscure and unusual medical things that a lot of people have, but they don't know where to find the information.
Of course. So, yes. Can they sign up for that? Can they sign up free? Does it cost them to get that amazing newsletter?
Perfectly free.
No. You see? Yeah. I love that. Free 15 minutes, free newsletter. You've got a podcast to listen to. And for those that haven't listened to the podcast, Bob doesn't go on endlessly for hours and hours. No. You can do a 6 and 7 and 8. There's little tiny sound bites, and it's meant that I've been able to just snack. I think it's called podcast snacking. I've been able to snack at your podcast, which I really love because we've all got 6 or 7 or 8 minutes, even if we're on the loo. That's not an advice, by the way. I'm not telling people to only listen to the Bob Allen on the loo. But if you are on the loo, why not listen to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we are. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. And what's the website URL? Look at me knowing all the lingo.
The website is www.painfreeliving.co.uk.
Well, do you know what? We are literally about a minute away from our 45-minute cut off. So I think we've done the most fantabulous job. But then I knew we would, because we are incredibly aligned. And if anyone does want to get hold of the Bob Allen, just go along to that website, listen to that podcast, and well, thank you for being just the Bob Allen.
And thank you for being the MJ, the legendary MJ, I should say. Yeah, I didn't try to be somebody else, but I couldn't do it. So yeah.
I'm definitely a legend. All the other people are taking Bob. Anyway, on that note, we're going to say goodbye, and we will be back in another 4 weeks' time with First Friday Live, and we'll see you with an even, well, a magical guest, I think, next month, but just not the Bob Allen. But you can watch this on replays. Bye, everybody.
Bye everyone.